So, you guys have heard me talk about branding a lot lately, and we're going to dig into it a little bit deeper today. Branding, when we think about it, we think instantly, at least me, I think about colors, I think about fonts, I think about logos, I think about like all of the visual stuff that we associate with the term branding. But here's the deal. Branding is not just about visuals. In fact, there's a lot of foundational work that goes into developing a brand before we get to the fancy fun stuff that we might be able to do on Canva or WordPress or Wix or whatever. And here's the kicker. Your music business has a brand whether or not you are putting conscious effort into curating that brand. And that's what we're going to dig into a little bit today. We're going to examine how intentional branding can help your studio like set itself apart from other studios down the street, how it can positively influence audience engagement, which I know everybody would like because there's nothing worse than getting into like all the social media stuff and not getting any engagement. So we're going to examine that. And we're going to examine how your branding, whether or not you're intentional with it, can actually increase or decrease client retention and referrals. So we're going to examine those three things today and look at how consistent branding and conscious branding can actually help grow your music business. Or on the flip side of that, if we're not conscious of those things and we're not intentional about those things, how can it actually be detrimental to your business? So we're going to examine those three things. We've got lots of good stuff to look at today. I want to say hello over to Georgia Joyce and Brandon Bascom Music. Nice to see you over on the Instagrams. And hello to everybody who is joining us on the Book of Face and on YouTube. If you are here with me live, please let me know. Are you consciously influencing how people perceive your brand? Is that something that you're putting effort and work into? I'm going to have some tips for you today that can help you do that. And if you're not, that's okay too. Just let me know, hey, I haven't really been doing it, but I'm interested in figuring out more. If you are watching on the replay, I just want to encourage you to jump into the conversation. We love to learn out loud here. So we're going to be doing all kinds of different things. If you hear something that's valuable to you, give us a hashtag takeaway in the comments and I'll bring it up on the screen for those of you who are here live. And if you're joining on the replay and you give us your takeaways, I'll come back and have a conversation with you. But before we get too deep into that right now, let's play a little music. Okay, welcome to the broadcast, everyone. The topic of the day is 3 ways that branding can grow or hurt your music business. And we're going to be talking about getting intentional with our brands and give you some nice actionable steps here. Oh, I see we've got a spammer over on the YouTube. That's always fun. I love that. Let's take care of that right now. And we will make sure to block that person. Remove. Okay, so I want to say good morning to everybody who's joining us. I see that Kathy is here. Good morning, Kathy. Tammy is here as well. Tammy, I sent you a message recently. I hope you got it. Deborah is here. She's here for all of the nuggets. Awesome. Hey, Melanie, how did your meeting go? Melanie had a funny thing pop up on her reminders today that she had a meeting with herself. But let's be honest. I think all of us are doing that, right? Like as most of us are sole props, we're having those team meetings on the regular and I love it. Thank you so much. I love that you enjoyed that video. It's like my favorite thing. Okay, Karen says she's waiting here for the ice storm. Thank you, Deborah. Okay. So we're going to get into it today. And if you are here with me on the Book of Face, I have a little word that is set up for you today so that you can get a hold of today's show notes and all of that jazz. And I'm going to give that to you in just a minute but I realized, hey, I forgot to introduce myself. So if you are new here, my name is Sara Campbell, and I am a business strategist, mindset, and marketing coach for music studio owners and online education experts just like yourself. And I go live here at Savvy Meowsic. Oh my gosh, that's totally on brand for me. Savvy Music Studio every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about all of those topics. And so today we're looking at the marketing side of things, and we're looking at branding and how consistent branding can positively influence your business. And we're going to break that down into 3 areas. Let's, before we get to the goods today, I want to invite those of you who are watching on YouTube live or on the replay to be sure to subscribe and turn on all notifications, because we're going to be dropping some new video content. And actually, let me tell everybody about this. It's super exciting. We just started something brand new. You know that we do the live videos on Wednesdays, but every Friday, we are dropping a short video on the YouTube channel. So every Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern, we're going to drop a quick tip video over there. So make sure that you've subscribed to the channel and that you've turned on notifications. So I see Brandon Bascom just subscribed on YouTube. Awesome. Sweet. Brandon, good to see you. And we will also be sending out links to those in our weekly newsletter. If you are not already on our email list and you would like to get a hold of that, if you just comment below with the word email, I'll be sure to reach out to you so that you can get a hold of that stuff, because we've got lots of goodness that go out in the weekly newsletter. We love to feature other teachers in that newsletter, and that's good stuff. Okay, great. Brandon, I see that you did that on YouTube. I know that I have you on Messenger, so I'll reach out to you. And yeah, Meowsic. That's the first time that's ever come out. I hope it's not the last. All right. For those of you who are on the Book of Face, I do have a fancy word that is something that you can drop down below. So if you drop the word branding below, you're going to get the notes from today's broadcast, the 3 points that I'm going to go over, and I'm going to send you some links as well if you're interested in exploring branding more. We get started with Branding Bootcamp on March 4th. That is next Friday. And actually, we get started on Monday with our Get to Know You session. We have 7 spots remaining right now. I've got discovery calls this afternoon, so I think that number is going to change pretty quickly here. If that's something you're interested in, reach out to me and let's have a chat. Okay, so let's get to it, right? All right. Oh, I forgot the YouTube peeps. You can get a hold of that stuff by clicking the link that I have put up in the chat here. And I'm going to just put that in there one more time. Oh, that's not the link that I wanted to put in there. Whoops, don't click that one. That's going to take you over to Facebook, and you're intentionally on YouTube. So actually click here. We're going to get to the goods in just a moment. All right, there you go. Okay. Oh, I like that. Heather, that's hilarious. March 4th, the only date on the calendar that is also a declarative sentence. I like that. So March 4th with us at Branding Bootcamp. All right, y'all, let's get to it. So I mentioned at the top of the broadcast that here's the deal. Whether or not we are intentional about branding our businesses have a brand. Every business has a brand, whether or not a person has sat down and really thought about what they want the brand to look at, because brand is actually based on client perception. And so we can influence that perception by creating consistent branding and making sure that we're communicating what we want to communicate. But if we're not doing that intentionally, you still have a brand, which is kind of good, right? So and can also be kind of bad depending on how you're playing your cards. If we're intentional about it, this allows us to communicate things that we want people to see, and it allows us to influence how people perceive our business. So we're going to examine 3 ways that consistent branding can influence our business in a way that allows us to increase visibility. It allows us to increase profits and to be intentional about those things. Okay, so let's get to item number 1. Quick Hey there. I say Miss April's Music Studios over on Instagram, and so is Lauren DeGiorgi, my favorite piano tuner. Here we go. All right, let's look at the first item here. Consistent branding can help set you apart. And I'm not just talking about like having consistent colors or having a logo or anything that's visual. Consistent branding can help set you apart in many different ways, not just with visuals. So, in this, what we're really digging into is we're thinking about how we present what we do to the world, how we present ourselves as who we are as a teacher, how we talk about the clients that we work with, and how we talk about how we help them. So there's like, let's look at a couple different areas that you can start digging into if you want to get consistent with your branding and set your studio apart from other studios in your area or other studios online. So one thing that you can dig into is thinking about like what are the values that you hold dear in your business? What values does your business want to communicate to other people? So let's think of some quick examples of this. And I think for me, like top of mind, I've been working with a few clients in some masterminds and also in like some one-on-one settings. And we're really thinking about, okay, what is it that I want to communicate that is important about my studio? So in a mastermind that we had on Monday, we were considering, okay, well, how can this teacher set apart her piano studio in a way that communicates to those ideal clients? And so we kind of dug deep and thought about, all right, well, what are the things that are important to the studio? And one of the things that jumped to mind was that parental involvement with the type of teaching that she does, parental involvement is 100% key. Now, that's not necessarily the case for every single studio, and some parents don't know that. Going into having their child take lessons, maybe they've never taken lessons before, so they didn't understand, mom or dad needs to be involved in specific ways. So part of communicating her values in her studio is to really lean into how important parental involvement is with the method that she uses to teach, how there are benefits to the parental involvement for the kid, and how the studio supports parents with those involvement. Those types of involvements. So, that's just one example of being able to communicate your values. So, I'd love for those who are watching live or on the replay, I'd love for you to brainstorm. Let's learn out loud a little bit today. And I want you to think about what are some of the values that are important in your business. The other day, I shared a post on Instagram that talks about the values that we hold dear here at Savvy Music Studio, and we call them our brand principles. So there were 6 principles that I shared, and I'm going to detail these so you get an idea of what I mean when it comes to like communicating those things. So making a difference every day, like whether it's tiny or huge, always seeking to create a positive impact with my actions, with our actions as a brand. Also, another one, mindful problem solving, making sure that we're not jumping in to just fix something as soon as a problem arises, but actually doing the hard work, staying curious, asking questions of clients so that you can figure out what the real problem is underneath. Right. So those are just 2 examples. If you want to see more about how I've communicated those principles, those values inside of our business organization, you can head on over to Instagram and look for the post by me. It's called The 6 Principles Our Brand Lives By. And it's going to give you some pretty clear details about what values we hold dear in our studio. So I'd love to know, what are the values that you hold dear? Give me 2 to 3 examples of the values that you hold as a business owner and as a person that are reflected in your business, and pop them down below. I can't wait to share those with everybody here. So let's continue with tip number 1. So the values that you communicate to people, that can be very important, right? Also, the stories that you communicate to people. So if we're trying to set our studios apart, our businesses apart, we need to be able to be good storytellers. And for those who are familiar with Seth Godin, he is all about storytelling. If you don't follow him, I would suggest that you do. Subscribe to his blog. He puts out these little tiny blurbs that are just full of really cool information. And a lot of what he talks about has to do with being able to tell your brand story and to be able to communicate, what it is that your business does in a storytelling format. And I'm not talking about fables, right? I'm not talking about, making something up. The story that you're communicating is about who you are, why you do what you do, and also telling the stories of your clients and the transformations that they have experienced. And I know that there are several teachers in the audience here who have recently made some fabulous posts that dig into their background as a music teacher and why they came to teach music. These little tiny nuggets, these stories that we can tell are going to help set you apart and really allow people to understand who you are and like why you do what you do. So our values, our story, other things like our brand promise. What is it that you do as a business and how can you communicate that in a succinct way? Those things are important, and being able to communicate those regularly via like what you write on social media, via what you put on your website, in the way that you present yourself in email, all of that will combine to set you apart and really distinguish you from other studios. So again, I'd love to know, what are the values that you hold dear? Pop those below. We'll bring those up on the screen. And let's move to item number 2. Before we do that, if you heard any takeaways, anything that was important about what you'd like to do with consistency in your brand, give us a hashtag takeaway, put that down below, and tell me what you're going to be working on. Are you going to work on communicating your values? Are you going to work on telling your brand story? Are you going to work on figuring out what is that brand promise? What is that unique value statement that I can put out? Drop that down below and set that intention for today. All right, item number 2. Okay, so bringing it back, thinking about if we're consistent with our brand, right? This can help people stop the scroll. And I tell you what, it's getting harder and harder to stop the scroll nowadays, especially because we have really started to become this short format consuming society, right? Don't get me wrong, Reels, yada yada, TikToks, YouTube Shorts, all that stuff, like it's cool. I've struggled to get into them, but what's interesting is that we are more and more moving to a place where getting people to stop the scroll is a little tricky because people want fast consumption. They want something that's easy for them to look at for like 7 seconds. So since I don't know, I'm not sure how to describe this. I guess since our attention span has decreased in the way that we consume media, it becomes really important to be able to stop the scroll. So let's look at a couple of different circumstances. Like if we are consistent in our branding and we are able to communicate with both visuals and words in a way that instantly grabs somebody's attention and reminds them of, oh yeah, that's that chick that talks about branding, or that's that piano studio that offers group classes, or that's that voice teacher who specializes in belting. We want to our branding to stop the scroll and be instantly recognizable. And so that's where consistency comes into play. If you're consistent with the message, if you're consistent with your visuals, then people recognize that more quickly and you're able to get them to stop the scroll. I would show you with my phone, but apparently I didn't bring it up here with me. Hey there, Braca, nice to see you here. She's over on the Instagrams. Oh, I see. Okay, Amy's given a good example here. She says that she takes a picture of her students and she talks about them. And Amy, I've been watching your stuff on Instagram and Facebook lately. You do a fabulous job with some of these posts, and I really love seeing them. So if you guys want to see this in action, check out Amy's socials. Amy, if you want to drop your social handles, that would be fantastic. Um, Karen says, tell Freya to bring your phone. I hope you all got my email yesterday that had a picture of the cat in it. That was something that I was like, you know what? I'm going to lean into my branding. My cat is going in my email this week. Totally stalking you, Amy, but in the most loving way. Okay. So the goal here with consistency is to stop the scroll. If we are not consistent in our branding and our messaging is constantly shifting and our visuals are constantly shifting, then it's harder to stop the scroll because people are going to be going through that newsfeed. People go fast, right? People go fast. They're going to be scrolling through that newsfeed and then they're just going to fly by your posts. So we want to be consistent with our branding in all of these different ways so that when people see a post of yours on Instagram, when people see your email pop up into their inbox, it helps them quickly recall, oh yes, I remember this person. And then that in turn, because they recognize it instantly, right? It helps them engage more with your content. So, consistent branding will allow us to have a higher level of branding recognition, and then the right people are more likely to tune into your stuff because they recognize who you are. They're like, oh yeah, I love Deborah's content. I'm going to stop and read this post. So there's another area, right? That when we're good with consistency, we get all this lovely stuff. Okay, I see a great comment from Deborah. She says that she takes selfies with her students backstage and she brags about them and she tags them and then their friends can see you too. Deborah, that's so smart, right? I love it. We've been having some fabulous conversations over in the Speakeasy Cooperative, which is another group that I coach in. And this is a group for voice businesses and professionals, voice teachers, all that good stuff. And we've been talking about, how can we use the fact that so many of our kiddos are going to be, and kiddos, they're not kiddos, they're teens, they're like adults now, are going to be in musicals. And how can we take advantage of attending those shows, and how can we, get ourselves out in front of other people? And it's a very interesting conversation. If we have any voice business people and you want to learn about the Speakeasy Cooperative, go ahead and put Speakeasy down below and I can reach out to you personally. There's going to be some really exciting stuff coming up in that group very shortly. Okay, so we have covered items number 1 and number 2. Put those put those takeaways down below. If there is something that I have mentioned in those first 2 items that you want to explore, if you have any questions about them, pop your questions down below. Let's move on to item number 3. All right. So consistency in your branding can actually increase your retention and your referrals, which is directly going to affect the profits in your business. So let's explore this. This is something that I think is kind of interesting. So we have talked about how good branding and consistent branding can set you apart. We've talked about how good branding can increase brand recognition. Now we're looking into how this can actually influence what we call brand loyalty, right? So I want you to think for a moment, what are some of the brands that you are intensely loyal to, right? Are there some stores, some shops, some styles that you are like, yep, that is my jam and I will consistently use them because I just love everything about their business. I'm actually wearing a sweatshirt. The people on YouTube can see it in full. It says Walnut Lodge Studio down at the bottom, Walnut Lodge Yoga. This is like one of my favorite places in the world. And like, I will loudly and proudly wear my sweatshirts and all of my gear from them and like love their social media posts, watch their things that they drop on YouTube, because they have provided a unique experience. And that unique experience has allowed me to create an emotional bond with that brand. Not just because the yoga teachers are amazing, but just everything about it. So that's what we want to be able to do in our own branding. So a lot of the times clients may think of branding as something that is like only front facing. Actually, there's two different like front facing things that I'm thinking about right now. Like front facing in the terms of, hey, like the potential clients, right? But then also front facing in terms of new clients. So our brand is both front facing and inward facing, right? Brand loyalty can be something that multi-teacher studios can lean into. If you are really words. If you are really intentional about like communicating your values, communicating why, how your employees are important to you, that can increase brand loyalty with your employees. Now, if you are really intentional about how you value working with students and you're leaning into, what are the benefits of being inside of this studio and communicating that clearly to people, that can increase your student retention. Because you're taking the time to create this unique experience inside of your studio, and that is going to allow you to create that emotional bond. And I know that so many of you here already have those emotional bonds with your students. So see, you have a brand. You're already creating branding in your studio, whether or not you realize it. Oh my gosh, my yoga teacher here is, hi, Ron. I just had my class this morning and I'm still rocking the sweatshirt. Okay, I see a great takeaway from Karen here. She says, takeaway, celebrate your students online with pictures. I love it. Excellent. And hey, Kevin Staley, thanks for subscribing over on YouTube. Good to see you here. There is a link for those who are watching on YouTube. If you click this link, you can get a hold of the show notes from today and all of that good stuff. So I'd love to know from Brandon and from Kevin and from who else was over on the YouTubes, Tammy, I'd love to know what are some of the takeaways that you have here today? What are some of the things that you're going to put into play? So let's wrap up number 3 here before we do our full recap. We're looking to increase our brand loyalty by really digging into that experience. And when we can do that, in a nutshell, what this is going to do is it's going to create less churn, right? So you're not going to have this turnover of clients who are leaving, yada, yada. It's going to have a higher retention, and that that is also going to influence the referrals that you get. So the branding that is communicated to the prospective clients, the branding that is communicated to the current clients, those things play together, right? If the branding is like really communicating things clearly about who you serve, all of this goodness, and how you help them, you're going to be able to attract more ideal clients coming into the studio. That internal branding and communicating those things consistently once they are in the studio is going to increase the retention. And when you've increased retention that way and you're nurturing those people who are inside of your business, that in turn is going to influence referrals. Because a happy customer is your best marketing tool, right? A happy customer is your best marketing tool because those are the ones that are going to shout you out and they're going to tell you about tell people about you. They're going to tell their friends. They're going to tell their family, right? Because when you are experiencing that lovely, unique experience inside of a business and you are having that emotional bond with that business, you are more likely to share it to somebody else. All right, so those are our 3 points today. I'd love to know your takeaways. We're going to give me your final takeaways from today. I'll bring them up on the screen here. But before we're going to do a recap for those who tuned in late. We're going to go through those 3 points nice and quick like. But before we do that, I want to remind everyone here that Branding Bootcamp starts next week. So if all of this stuff that we've talked about today has you going, you know what? It is time for me to get more intentional. I have a class for you, and it's going to be fabulous. We have space for 7 teachers to join us. We only run this twice a year, and I do believe that in the fall we're going to be switching things up, so it's going to be a little bit different. This may be the last chance that you get to have this iteration of Branding Bootcamp at this price point. So I'm letting you all know that now to be transparent. If this is something that you are interested in and you're like, yeah, Sarah, I need to really take control of my brand and I need to be able to influence the way that people perceive my studio, put Branding Bootcamp below. I will reach out to you. Let's have a conversation about how this can work. We are going to get started with our Get to Know You Week starting on Monday, February 28th. I cannot wait. We've got a great group of teachers, and I'd love for you to join us if that is something that you'd love to work on. Okay, thank you, Deborah, for the shout out. All right, she says it's the bomb. Do it. Okay, let's do our rapid recap here today. All right, so here's the interesting thing about branding. Whether or not you are intentional with what you are doing in your studio, thinking, okay, I've branded myself, whether you're intentional with that or not, your studio actually has a brand because brand is based on customer perception. So the way that you brand your studio or not intentionally brand your studio can grow or hurt your business. Here are 3 different ways that branding can positively or negatively influence your business. Item number 1, all right, branding can set you apart. It can make you look at unique compared to another studio down the street. So we can do this by knowing what our values are, being able to communicate that to people. We can do this by understanding what our brand promise is. And we can do this by telling our story in a unique way so that when people see our stuff, they're like, oh yeah, that studio looks pretty awesome because I know exactly what they are all about. Number 2, branding can help you stop the scroll because people are moving fast on those news feeds nowadays. And if you have consistent branding, and I'm not just talking about visuals, although visuals will help, if you have consistent visuals, if you have consistent tone, consistent verbal elements, and you're showing up in a consistent way, it can help us slow and stop that scroll so that when people see your posts and they see your emails, they are immediately recalling who you are, and that's going to influence how they engage with your content. Okay, item number 2. 3. We're on 3. Okay, item number 3 is that it allows you to increase your retention and referrals because if we can really dig into our brand and be able to communicate those things, then that can in turn create brand loyalty. So we're bringing in the right people. We're treating those people like the amazing clients that they are when they're inside of the studio. And then they are, in turn, referring other people to us. So getting intentional with your branding can stop that churn of clients going in and out. It can increase your retention and it can increase your referrals. All right, so those are our 3 tips today. If you do want to get a hold of all of the goodness from this, make sure if you are on Facebook or, if you're on Facebook, put a branding down below. And the Savvy Sarah bot will reach out to you and give you the show notes from today. She will also give you information about Branding Bootcamp, where you can learn more about that class. And she'll give you a way to opt in to get reminders about these broadcasts. We send reminders out via email, via Facebook Messenger, and via text. You can sign up for any of those so that you get the links instantly. And don't forget that we're going to be putting out new quick tips on the YouTubes every Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to get a hold of those, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you want to get a hold of those via an email, put the words email list down below. I will reach out to you and make sure that you can get our weekly newsletter that includes the links to all of these things. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you. I see Kathy's final takeaway, stop the scroll. I see that Kathy has put a branding down below. Awesome. And Janet says, thanks for all that you do. Thanks for being here, everybody. I really appreciate you all. I will be back next week. And in the meantime, stay savvy and stay you, because you are an amazing teacher, and there is no one in the world who is quite like you. And I think that you are pretty dang awesome. We will see you next week.